Halo semuanya, berjumpa lagi dalam Maas Dalam. Maaf ya, beberapa video kemarin memang sempat trouble karena kamera. Sekali lagi maaf ya, karena memang terus terang aku agak kesel juga. Kenapa HP itu agak error, dimana itu dalam kamera sudah bisa hubungan dan ada aku hapus dari beberapa file software. Jadi kita langsung saja ya untuk membacakan chapter 4. Tapi sebelumnya itu jangan lupa subscribe dan komen Anda, nama kalian akan dari sini untuk membahas menceritakan kembali membacakan kisah cerita ya. Chapter 4. When Celaena finally collapsed on the bed after her meeting in the throne room, she couldn't fall asleep despite the exhaustion in every inch of her body. After being roughly bathed by British servant, the wounds on her back, throat, and her face felt like it had been scrubbed to the bone. Shifting to lie on her side to ease the pain in her dress unbound bed, she ran her hand down the mattress and blinked at the faintness of movement. Before she got into the bed, Carol had removed her shackles. She felt everything, the reverberation of the key turning in and out of her eyelids. Then again as they loosened and fell to the floor. She could still feel the coarse chains hovering just above her skin. Looking up the ceiling, she lifted her raw, burning joints and gave a sigh of contentment. But it was too strange to lie on a mattress, to have silk curls her skin and pillow cradle her cheek. She had forgotten what food other than soggy oats and hard bread tastes like, what a clean body and the clothes could do on a person. Now it was utterly foreign. Though the dinner had been that wonderful, not only was the roast chicken unimpressive, but after a few forkfuls, she dashed into the bathroom to deposit the contents of her stomach. She wanted to eat, to put her hand to the swollen belly, to wish that she'd never eaten a morsel and swear that she'd never eat again. She'd eat well and live for would she, and more importantly, her stomach would adjust. She'd waste away to nothing. Beneath her nightgown, her ribs stitched out from the inside of her, showing bones where flesh and meat should have been, and her breasts, once were well formed, they were now no larger than that being in the midst of puberty. A lump growth ruptured, which she promptly swung down. The softness of the mattress smoothed her, and she shivered again, lying on her back despite the pain it gave her. Her face hadn't been much better when she glimpsed in the washroom mirror. It was haggard. Her cheekbones were sharp, her jaw pronounced, and her eyes slightly but ever so disturbingly sunken in. She took steady breaths, savoring the hope. She ate a lot and exercised. She could be healthy again, imagining outreaches fast and regaining her former glory. She finally fell asleep. When Gil came to fetch her in the next morning, he found her sleeping on the floor, wrapping the blanket. "Judulnya," he said. She made a mumbling noise, burying her face farther in the pillow. "Why are you sleeping on the ground?" She opened and asked. Of course, she didn't mention how different she looked now that she was clean. She didn't want to concern herself with the blanket as she stood. The yards of fabric they called a nightgown covered her enough. The bed was uncomfortable, she said simply, but quickly forgot the captain as she beheld the sunlight. Pure, fresh, warm sunlight. Sunlight that she could bask in the day after day if she got her freedom. Sunlight would drawn out to the endless depth of the mines. It leaked into the heavy drapes, smearing itself across the room in the thick lines. Gingerly, Celaena stretched out a hand. Her hand was pale, almost skeletal, but there was something about it, something beyond the bruises and cuts and scars, that seemed beautiful and new in the morning light. She ran to the window and nearly ripped the curtains from their hangings as she opened them to the grey mountains and bleakness of Endovier. The guards watching beneath the window didn't glance, upward, and she kept at the bluish gray sky, and the clouds sleeping on their shoes and shuffling toward the horizon. I will not be afraid. For the first time in a while, the words fell true. Her lips peeled into smile. The captain raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She was cheerful, jubilant, windy, and her mood improved when servant coiled her gray hair onto the back of her head and dressed her in the surprisingly fine riding habit that concealed her miserably thin form. She loved clothes, loved the fitting of silk, of velvet, of satin, of suede and chiffon, and was fascinated by the grace of silks, the intricate perfection of an embossed surface. And when she won this ridiculous competition, when she was free, she could buy all clothes she wanted. She loved them carefully. And how Selena stood in front of the window in 4 or 5 minutes, admiring herself, half dragged her out of the room. The big bloody sky and her wand to dance and skip down the halls before they entered the main yard. However, she finally, as she beheld the launch of the gold-colored dog at the far at the end of compound, and the small figures going on in and out of the many mud-like holes cut into the mountains. Work had probably already begun for the day, work that would continue without her when she left them all to this miserable fate. Her stomach clenching, Celaena averted her eyes from the prisoner, keeping up with the captain as they headed to the caravan of horses near the towering wall. Yapping filled the air, and the 3 black dogs sprint from the center of the caravan to greet them. They were each sleek as arrows, undoubtedly from Crown Springs camels. She knelt on one knee, her bone bones protesting as she cocked their heads and stroked her smooth hair. They licked her finger and face, their tails slashing the ground like waves. A pair of ebony boots stopped before her, and dogs immediately calm and sad. Celaena lifted her gaze to find the savage eyes of the crown prince under studying her face. He smiled slightly. How am I sure for them to see me, he said, scratching one of the dogs behind the ears. Did you keep giving me food? She shook her head as the captain stepped behind her, so close that his knees rested the folds of her forest green velvet cape. It would take all of 2 movements to disarm him. Are you fond of dogs? Asked the prince. She nodded. Why was it already so hot? Am I going to be fast with the pressure of bearing her voice, or have you resolved to be silent for the rest of our journey? I'm afraid your question demanded a firm response. Dorian bowed low. Then I apologize, my lady. How terrible it must be condensing to answer. Next time I'll try to think something more stimulating to say. With that, he turned on his heel and strode away, his dogs trailing after him. She scowled as she stood, her frown deepened when she discovered the captain of the guard smirking as they walked into the fray of the leading company. However, the unbearable urge to spread some across a wall left while they drove her a Bible meant. She won. The sky came closer, and she stretched forever before her, away and away to distant lands that she'd never heard of. Celaena gripped the saddle on. She was truly living in the fear. All those hopeless months, those freezing nights, gone now. She breathed in deeply. She just knew that if she tried too hard enough, she could fly from her saddle. That is after she felt iron clamp around her arms. It was Carol, fastening her vantage waist into shackles. A long chain led to his horse, where it disappeared beneath the saddlebags. He mounted his black stallion, and she considered leaping from her horse and using the chain to hang him from the nearest tree. It was rather large company, 20 altogether, behind 2 Imperial flag-bearing guards rode the gates and Blue Wellington, and they came of a bed of 6 oil cars, blue and black as boys, but still trying to protect him from her. She cranked her chain against her saddle and flicked her eyes to kill. didn't react. The sun rose higher. After one last inspection of the supply, they left, with most of slaves working the mines, and only a few toiling inside the ramshackle refining states. The giant yacht was almost deserted. The wall suddenly bloomed, and her blood caught in her frame. Last time she'd been so close to the wall. The crack of the wave sounded, followed by a scream. Celaena looked over her shoulder, past the clothes and supplies wagon to the near empty yacht. None of these slaves would let ever leave here, even believed it. Each week, they put new mass graves behind the refining sets, and each week, those graves fill up. She became all too aware of the 3 long scars down her back. Even if she won her freedom, even if she lived in peace in the countryside, those scars would always remind her of what she endured, and that if she was free, others were not. Celaena fast forward, pushing those stuff from her mind as they entered the passage through the wall. The entire room was thick, almost smoky and damp. The sound of the horse echoed like rolling thunder. The iron gate opened, and she glimpsed the winged name of the mine before it split into and soon walked by. Within a few heartbeats, the gates closed shut behind her. She shouted. She shifted her hands in their circles, watching the chain sway and clank between her and captain of the car. It was attached to his saddle, which was tied around his horse, which then when stopped, could be stoppedly unbridled, just enough so that with the fierce tug from her hand, the chain would rip the saddle off the beast. It humbled the ground and she would. She sensed Captain Westfaal's attention. She stared at her granite lowered clothes, his lips tightly pursed, and she struggled as she dropped the chain. As the morning wore on, the sky became a crisp blue with hardly a cloud. Taking a forest road, they swiftly passed on the mountainous wasteland of Endovier and into fair country. By mid-morning, they were within oak forest, the wood that surrounded Endovier and served as continental between the civilized countries of the east and the enchanted lands of the west. Legend was still told of the strange and deadly people who dwelt there, the cruel and bloodthirsty descendants of the Thornwich kingdom. Celaena had once met a young woman from that cursed land, and though she turned out to be both cruel and thirsty, she was still a human and had still bled like one. After hours of silence, Celaena turned to the chaos. Rumor has it that once the king is finished with his war against Wanita, he'll begin colonizing the West. She said it casually, but hoped he confirmed of the or denied. The more she knew of the king's current position and maneuvering the battle, the captain surveyed her up and down, frowned and then looked away. I agree, she said. Slightly, nothing. The fate of those empty, white plains and those miserable mountain regions seems to toll to me as well. This jaws tightened as he clamped his teeth. Do you intend to ignore me forever? Captain Westfaal's brows rose. I didn't know I was ignoring you. She pursed her lips, checking her irritation. She wouldn't give him dissatisfaction. How old are you? 32. So young. She bent her eyelash, watching him from some kind of response. It only took a few years to climb the ranks. He nodded. And how old are you? 18. But he said nothing. I know, she continued. It's impressive that I have so much at such an early age. Crime isn't a accomplishment, suddenly. Yes, but becoming the world's most famous assassin is, in the next point. You might ask me how I did what, he said lightly. Become so talented and famous so quickly? I don't hear the point. Those were the words she wanted to hear. You're not very kind, she said through her teeth. If she were going to under his skin, she'd have to push a lot harder. You're a criminal. I'm captain of Selamat. I'm not obligated to start any kind of conversation upon you. Be grateful we didn't keep you locked up in a wagon. Yes, well, I'm angry and you're rather unpleasant to talk to even when you just doing kindness upon others. When he failed to respond again, Celaena couldn't help but feel a bit foolish. A few minutes passed. Are you and Crown Prince's close friend? My personal life is none of your concern. She clicked her tongue. How well born are you? Good enough. His chin lifted almost imperceptibly higher. Good. No. Don't. He didn't reply and he smiled slowly. Not chaos Westfaal. She patted herself in the hand. How the court ladies must frown upon you. Don't call me that. I'm not giving the title of Lord, he said quietly. Do you have an older brother? No. Then why did you wear the title? Again, no response. She knows she didn't stop crying, but she couldn't help it. A scandal? A trade right? Is that what? Sort of messy with our uniform? His lips squeezed together so tightly that turned once. She leaned toward him. Do you find that? Shall I guide you? Or are you capable to be silent without my assistance? He stared ahead at the ground, his face blank again. She tried not to laugh when he grimaced as he began speaking again. Are you married? No. She began at her lips. I don't have either. He's still afraid. How old were you when you became the captain of the guard? He gripped the reins of his horse. 20. The party halted in the clearing and soldiers dismounted. She faced Kale, who swung a leg over his boat. Why we stop? Kale unhooked the chain from his saddle and gave it a firm yank, motioning for her to dismount. Run, she said. Oke, itu saja ya dari chapter 4. Cukup panjang juga ya. Ya, kalau saya sih emang jujur aku saya lega juga ya karena sudah cukup panjang juga. Terima kasih kalian sudah berada di sini dan sudah menonton semuanya. Sekali lagi bagi teman-teman yang penasaran masih cita-citanya bisa kasih link deskripsi di bawah ini. Itu sudah ada masuk part-partnya. Kalian tinggal klik aja, berikan like, subscribe dan komentar Anda supaya bisa kedepannya bisa memperbaikinya di next videonya ya. Sekian dari aku. See you around and bye bye.